conversations that leave you feeling happy and rejuvenated.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. 4 o'clock hour on Thursday. You got 53 minutes, 26 seconds until that 5 o'clock bell. And I appreciate so much you sharing that time with us here on Dollars and Cents as we give attention to, and perhaps we're going to even spark some conversation regarding, items of financial and economic importance. Now, you know, as a previous listener to this show, talking on any number of subjects. We're going to do it again today. Going to be looking at some companies. Going to be looking at some companies that are really doing well right now. And maybe some companies that aren't doing so well right now, or some things that you may want to kind of avoid or make sure that you're at least aware of the risks that are out there. But in doing so, as we're talking about all those different kinds of things, you remember, as a previous listener to Dollars and Cents, that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're going to be talking on these companies, we're going to be looking at strategies, going to be talking even on sectors here today, a little bit looking at how the market's moving and what kinds of things that it appears are tending to be trending out there right now, and those things that may be fading into the sunset a little bit. Again, nothing that we're talking about here intended as a specific recommendation for you. We strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, to your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us, North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation, see if there are ways in which we might be able to be helpful to you. Online, you find us at northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, main like the street, financial.com. You can leave us a email address, a phone number on that contact page there. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. You're also welcome to call us here in the studio as well, anytime that you want to do that. Can't promise you I'm going to get to your question during the course of today's show, but producer Reese here, he's going to write it down for me. He's going to make sure that if I can't get to it, that I'm going to remember it and make sure that I answer it for you, because we want the show to be pertinent. We want it to be helpful to you, the kinds of things that may be on your radar screen. Don't ask me for the hot stock tip. You know I'm not that guy. Gosh, if I start doing that, you know it's probably going to be the absolute opposite of what you should be doing. So make sure that that you keep it general and broad scoped when you're asking those kinds of things, but happy to lean into those kinds of subjects that may be hitting your radar screen. So you got 844-STUDIO-4. That's 844-788-3464 here in the studio. 844-788-3464 again here at WSIC. All right, let's get into it. What's hot? What's on your radar screen? What's the kind of thing? What are the kind of things that maybe you're seeing out there? I know we had inauguration this week. I'm not belittling it at all. It was a very, very important occasion at all. But boy, did it just take the oxygen out of the room from a news cycle standpoint, meaning that everything, very nearly everything, was and is, and appropriately so in many ways, focused on that kind of thing. But it took out some of the other headlines that I think were pretty noteworthy for this week. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. Don't worry, I'm going to bounce into the political end of things as well, even though we're not supposed to be touching those rails with finance. I do it anyhow. We're going to be talking about it here, especially as we get a little bit later on in the show, talking about where markets are and what we may see here for the balance of Q1, because ready or not, you know, we're almost at the end of the first month already. I mean, I just realized when I was looking at my calendar and trying to schedule some things and was talking to some folks about scheduling, I mean, end of next week is the end of the month. I mean, holy smokes. I mean, 1/12. I think I just literally got the Christmas tree out of the living room. I mean, holy mackerel. And we're literally looking at the end of the month here. So anyhow, so let's talk about the kinds of things that may have been on the radar screen, but maybe you missed because of all the other news and happenings and pageantry that was happening this past week. Electronic Arts, ticker symbol Edward Alpha EA, a video game manufacturer. And they do the design and they do a little bit of third-party manufacturing as well, but it's really on the design element. Publicly traded company, ticker symbol Edward Alpha, that was out there. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or bonds. Came out with some disappointing earnings. Now, I got to say that, you know, with something like with EI, or the other big one out there is Activision Blizzard, Alpha Charlie Tom, Victor Indian, so a little bit different there in terms of the ticker symbol. Those are the two big ones that are out there that are producing video games. So when we're talking about Call of Duty kinds of things, or other, you know, big series kinds of games that are out there, these are the ones that are manufacturing Madden, football, all that good kind of stuff. That's EA on their end of things. came out some very disappointing earnings. And I think it was a little bit a subject of maybe overinflated expectations. Can happen. I mean, we're seeing that in parts of the market right now where the expectations are almost demanding perfection. Of course, no company's perfect, no person is perfect. So to expect that companies somehow, especially over a prolonged period of time, are going to perform, quote, perfectly, just not wise to do that. So I think the air got taken out of the balloon a little bit. EA stock down about 13% as they came out with earnings that definitely missed expectations. They really pointed towards their soccer game, their soccer video game, that had some disappointing sales relative to expectations, and that was really the reason for not only top line revenue miss, but also bottom line margin miss, and that hurt the stock. So it'd be interesting to see if they can turn it around here. They talked about what the pipeline looks like in terms of not only new game iterations, but new versions of existing legacy game kinds of things that are sitting out there. It's going to be interesting to see how they turn that around. So we're going to be watching them. It's going to be interesting to see. So all right, let's keep going here. General Mills. Not General Mills. Skipping along too fast here. Netflix. I'm going to get to General Mills here in a minute, but that's going to be talking about food. One of my favorite things to do here on Dollars and Cents. Netflix. And ticker symbol Nancy Frank Larry X-Ray. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock or bonds there again. Wow. Did they nailed it. And I've got to raise my hand. And I have to raise my hand because I have been one who has been skeptical of the ability of Netflix now with just rampant competition in what we're broadly calling the streaming sector, or the ways in which we consume entertainment through, let's call them non-traditional means, or at least non-corded means. And by corded, yes, I'm talking about the cord that connects from the television into the wall, into a cable outlet kind of thing. And I had some concern because of the tremendous amount of capital that Netflix was spending to do Netflix only or Netflix specific kinds of productions. I mean, they were bringing in the biggest of the big names and making some really cool stuff, but very, very expensive to do that. And content was becoming outrageously expensive to buy, to put on their platform as well. And again, I've got to raise my hand. Netflix is doing an exceptional job. I looked through that 10Q here. I did the Cliffs Notes version. I'll admit it. I didn't skim through a couple hundred pages of it. But I definitely skimmed through it, listened to the quarterly earnings call, and was very impressed with what they're doing. Now, Netflix and a couple of others, I'm looking at Peacock, I'm looking at Paramount Plus, I'm looking at others. They're doing something, Amazon definitely is doing this. They're doing some things that are expanding beyond what they have traditionally done. Netflix historically, go on there, watch your favorite movie kind of thing, right? Wait for the inventory to flip over a little bit to watch new movies. Definitely are expanding. They're definitely looking at things like live performances. That was a huge one, not only in terms of sparking subscriber increases, but also in terms of retention of current subscribers. So very interesting to see that with the live performances, whether it's for music kind of things or for sports related kinds of things. Definitely a big one that's out there. Going to be interesting to see. It's still a very shark infested water, if you will, when it comes to the streaming services and how to be competitive in them. Tremendously expensive. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more as we come back from break here as well, because there are a lot of competitors out there. A lot of folks are in that business. Tough to make a buck when it comes to the streaming services, especially when our tastes change so much. Anyhow, thanks so much for hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents. We're going to take a minute to hear from our sponsors. Come back soon on WSIC.
Certified financial planner Joshua Dobi continues straight ahead on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Starting to emerge out of our deep freeze around Lake Norman over the next couple of days. Sunshine back mixed with some clouds today as high temperatures climb only into the upper 30s, but we are above freezing. Temperatures go back down into the low 20s overnight. Maybe some upper teens around the outlying spots and farms, but for your Friday, we'll climb back into the low 40s. Mid-40s starting off the weekend, or back close to 50 by the end of the weekend. Near 60 maybe by next week. That's your forecast. From the WSIC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like ISI Denver.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Join us at Bid 110 in Cornelius on Thursday, January 23rd at 6:30 p.m. for a night of connection, conversation, and carefree vibes. It is Ladies' Night at Bid 110. Dry January? Wet January? You can sip soda or a nice glass of wine. Your choice, as the group will be happy to see you. Ladies' Night at Bid 110 in Cornelius, Thursday, January 23rd. Saturday afternoon, Soul to Soul Connection, Willow Equine, and Letters from Home are hosting a poker tournament. Registration begins at 1 p.m. at Barn Life on London Road in Mooresville. Proceeds benefit Soul to Soul Connection. Registration is at 1 p.m. The game begins at 1:30 and ends at 3:30. Cash prizes are distributed immediately to the winners. Come on out to Barn Life in Mooresville Saturday at 1 p.m. for the Soul to Soul Poker Tournament. Local star Rocky Lynn performs Saturday night at Joe V. Knox Auditorium in Mooresville. The show begins at 7:30 p.m. inside the Charles Mack Citizen Center. There will be a pre-show party at 158 on Main in downtown Mooresville. Visit experiencecmcc.com for tickets, and we will see you Saturday night at the Joe V. Knox Auditorium in Mooresville for the Rocky Lynn concert. This is the final week to lace up your skates at Brookdale on Ice, happening now through Sunday. Reservations to ensure skating time slots are accepted. Walk-ups are also welcome. Go to BrookdaleVillage.com for details, information, and tickets to Brookdale on Ice. At Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Ford Performance Racing School offers on-track driving instruction for every performance driving enthusiast, regardless of skill level or goal. All Ford Performance Racing School classes are conducted by trained, experienced, and professional instructors. Here's your chance to get your Roval on. Book now at 435-27-SPEED or visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for details and more information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Call now to speak with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi at 844-STUDIO-4. It's dollars and cents on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second quarter of today's show, football reference. Folks, it's a big football weekend. I get it that not everybody's a football fan. I do. And some folks, even in the football fan genre, some folks really like the NFL, some folks really like college, some folks like both kinds of things. I mean, you know, we had the national championship, right? I mean, it was a good game, I think. Obviously, if you're not an Ohio State fan, it wasn't a good game. But it was a good game to watch, I think. And but now we got college season behind us, so now it's just the NFL here for the next couple of weeks. And we got two big games here that will determine who the participants are in the Super Bowl. A lot of Joe Berg's coming on after me, by the way. 5 o'clock, Sports Board here. Make sure that you're listening to him. He'll give you actually what an expert's opinion is. You're just talking to a hack right here when it's talking about sports-related stuff. But it's going to be fun. I mean, exciting teams, I think, pretty much all across the board when you're looking at the four teams that are left here, and certainly playing a lot of good football. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins that. And then ultimately, who's in the Super Bowl. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Super Bowl, but more probably from a food perspective here a little bit later on the show. We do that kind of stuff. We just make up reasons to talk about food here on Dollars and Cents. So anything I can do to tie it in, I'm definitely going to do that. All right, let's get back. What we went to right before break there, we're talking about Netflix, crushing quarter in a positive way. Really did very well. And really expanding the suite, if you will, of services that they are providing, looking a lot more, as are their competitors, at these live performances, whether they're music-related, sports-related kinds of things, other event-related kind of things, like the Mike Tyson fight here several weeks ago. That was a live event carry as well. But looking at it not only in terms of bringing on new subscribers, but also the help that it is in retaining current subscribers for those kinds of things. So very interesting to hear that kind of perspective. Very different from just being the almost like the online video store that they had been prior to that point. So definitely expanding, definitely adapting. And as I held my hand up, I did not expect that they would be able to maintain margins and profitability in the ways they have been, because they're not only maintaining, they're growing it. And boy, the stock price reflected that. It popped up in double-digit percentages there, literally as that report came out, and was very, very positive. Now, on the other side of things, this is under the larger rubric of just how we consume our entertainment, our digital, online, screen-related entertainment. Some not so great news coming out of CNN. They announced that CNN, the cable news network, they're going to be cutting about 5% of their workforce. Now, CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery, ticker symbol Walter Bravo David WBD, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. Warner Brothers Discovery was a spinoff of AT&T and a combination with Discovery here about a year and a half, and maybe about a year or so ago. That actually, it's longer than that because the stock's been around a little bit longer than that. Let's say close to 2 years ago that happened. And so CNN announcing that layoff. And they're not the only ones who are suffering. When you look at viewership here with regards, so let's call them the more traditional legacy broadcasters. I'm looking at, the kinds of things like Fox, like MSNBC, CNN, definitely all in those kinds of categories there. Viewership down tremendously. And CNN, in addition to saying the viewership was down, was also saying that, they were putting more emphasis, more capital in their online, in their streaming news-related services, which, again, is under this idea of how we're consuming our, I don't want to call news entertainment, although sometimes it is, coming from certain sources, that, how we're consuming, let's call it information relay, whether it's for entertainment purposes or for awareness and understanding kinds of purposes, and saying they were going to just devote a whole lot more towards the digital space and reducing significantly some of their exposure. And let's call it more live, in-person kind of broadcast, or more traditional kind of news distribution. So very interesting to see that. Is it a trend overall that we're going to see the legacy news production companies go away? No, I don't believe that. But they are being forced to change, notably, and whether they like it or not. I mean, we are well beyond, unfortunately. Yeah, I guess I just said that. We are well beyond, unfortunately, the days of Walter Cronkite. And that particular, I know Walter Cronkite. A lot of you are shaking your head. I know it. I can't see you. You can see me if you're live on the socials or on the WSIC app right now. My hair's gray enough that I actually do know Walter Cronkite, and I know a lot of you listening do as well. But it's changing. It's a very different landscape right now. So the whole idea of entertainment / news consumption and how we do that, it is moving so quickly that I think in part it's hard for these larger legacy organizations to keep up. Really is. And so we have that coming from CNN, kind of the antithesis or the other side of what we heard from a quarterly report standpoint from Netflix. So just very interesting to hear that, and certainly we'll continue to follow that as well. All right, so you heard me say that, we got football this week, and we're going to be getting into the Super Bowl here in a couple of weeks, and there's going to be a lot of hype. So, what comes along with football whenever you're thinking about anything? Well, food, of course. That's absolutely kind of goes together. I mean, Uber Eats is making a whole commercial series out of it, saying that the NFL is basically a food marketing machine. They might be. I don't know. But excuse me. In looking at just the kinds of things that are out there, we talked about Cheetos last week coming out with a Super Bowl related flavor. I saw this one, and producer Reese, I'm gonna ask you to give me the thumbs up or thumbs down on this. General Mills, publicly traded company, ticker symbol Green Indigo Sam, GIS is the ticker symbol for General Mills. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold. But for the Super Bowl, General Mills produce a lot of things. They're a large consumer goods company, and they produce the cereal Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Now, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is one of the cinnamon sugary cereals, breakfast cereals that are out there if you haven't had it previously. Now, they came out. Now, producer Reese, I'm looking at you here. They came out and said for the Super Bowl, they're going to have a pizza-flavored Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal. Now, I'll now see, my face did the same thing that yours is doing right now, producer Reese, whenever I saw it. Because, I try to be open. I try to be open to new ideas, new flavors. And, but boy, when I have not tried this, so I could be completely wrong. It could be just spectacular. And there may be some of you out there who already tried it and say, you really got to try this. This is amazing. But when I saw that combination, Cinnamon Toast Crunch pizza flavor, I think that's somebody trying too hard, right? You're shaking your head no. Yeah, all right. So producer Reese and I are on the same page here. That big thumbs down for that. I think somebody's trying too hard. I get it. It's the Super Bowl. You're trying to boost sales, maybe even to produce a little bit, maybe folks who haven't tried it previously. There are some things that just need to be left alone. And I think Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal might be one of them there. So anyhow, if you see it out there and it's really good, give us a call in the studio, 844-STUDIO-4. Be happy to hear from you if you really like that kind of stuff. I might be missing out. I'm more than open to it. Producer Reese was in the grocery store the other day, and he saw the Pop-Tarts flavored Krispy Kreme donuts, and they look great. He took a picture of them. I mean, not that it doesn't take a whole lot for me to get excited about food, but I was excited when I saw it. All right, let's keep going here. Talking about what's happening with regards to the food end of the universe. I know they were talking about this on Good Morning LKN, which, by the way, 7 to 9 every Monday to Friday here on WSIC. You got Mamie, Bill, you got the Chief, Justin here. Great show. Not only is it going to keep you informed about what's going on, but they're going to make you chuckle as well. Great stuff. I know they were talking about Crumble Cookie Company. Crumble Cookie Company is not, by the way, publicly traded. Started by two guys in Utah. I did a little bit of research on this. I mean, they basically wanted to make the world's greatest cookie. That's according to them, of course. And so if you've not had Crumble cookies, I mean, they're basically like eating a small cake. It's unbelievable how big, how thick, the amount of icing that's on them. They got different flavors every week. If you've ever walked into a Crumble cookie store, the smells, oh my gosh, they're amazing. Amazing kind of stuff. I'm getting thumbs up from Producer Reese. He says that I'm with you on that one, Producer Reese. Anyhow, so they're coming out, and they were talking about these collaborations, and they talked about one this morning, a collaboration with Dove, which, by the way, Dove soap, right? Or it could be bar soap, Dove bar soap. They have shower gel, all those kinds of things. Owned by Unilever. Unilever, publicly traded company. Ticker symbol Umbrella Larry. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold that stock either. But they were talking about cookie-flavored bath soap. And I agree with them. And they were saying this on Good Morning Elk. I think sometimes we try too hard, right? I mean, we all want to have these combinations, and we want to collaborate and boost sales, and maybe it's good for Dove soap, and maybe it's good for getting the word out on Crumble. You see, okay, so you're not giving it the thumbs down though, Producer Reese. Okay, so I'm going to take that as a push. I'm glad you can, because I can't. But along those same lines, I mean, here's another one. Dunkin' Donuts. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Publicly traded company. David Kelly Nancy is the ticker symbol. Not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stock. They're out there in a combination with a group called Native, which does deodorant. And they're talking about, you know where I'm going with this, donut flavored or donut smelling deodorant. I don't know. There must have been something wrong with my feed here this past week, because that's the kind of stuff that kept coming across it. And usually it's coming up with stuff where I'm sharing with you guys saying, boy, this company doing something that's kind of interesting. And so, yep, thumbs down. I'm with you, Producer Reese. I can't go with that either. But when I heard that this morning, when I heard about Crumble and Dove, and I knew I had seen that about Dunkin' and Native as well, I thought, maybe trying too hard. Maybe that's, we're throwing too much against the wall, hoping it'll stick there. But that was kind of interesting as I was looking at that as well. Anyhow, it's any way that you cut it. When you're looking at the Super Bowl, huge, from talking financials, huge kind of experience. I mean, it is billions with a B. There is not, here in the U.S., there is not a sporting experience which generates more retail expenditure than the NFL. It is amazing, and we're not too far behind with big time college football, but the NFL is king, and they just print money. So whether it's with regards to food companies trying to be more attractive so that folks are buying more in celebration of the game, or whether you're talking about retail companies, bars, restaurants, certainly hotels, and all that goes along with where the Super Bowl is being held, it is a massive kind of experience. So it's going to be a huge economic impact in a positive way. That's a good thing. I'm glad that folks are going to be enjoying it, probably going to have the opportunity, I hope, to see a couple of good football games as well, and then ultimately a good Super Bowl. But we'll find out here. But along the way, there'll probably be something good to eat. Appreciate you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Coming back in just a few moments.
Dollars and Cents with your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi, continues straight ahead on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Starting to emerge out of our deep freeze around Lake Norman over the next couple of days. Sunshine back mixed with some clouds today as high temperatures climb only into the upper 30s, but we are above freezing. Temperatures go back down into the low 20s overnight. Maybe some upper teens around the outlying spots and farms, but for your Friday, we'll climb back into the low 40s. Mid-40s starting off the weekend, or we're back close to 50 by the end of the weekend. Near 60 maybe by next week. That's your forecast. From the WSIC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Hello, everyone. This is Joshua Dobi, president of North Main Financial Group. At North Main Financial Group, we move to where you need us. Investment management, insurance planning, and estate strategies. No two people are the same, so we customize our planning based upon your needs. Reach out to us at northmainfinancial.com. That's northmainfinancial.com.
Inspire your team and gallop to greatness. Our horses at Willow Equine are outstanding at working with people on leadership and team building skills, perfect for corporate retreats. Visit willowequine.com as you gallop to greatness.
Hey, it's Kevin Harrison with Harrison's. Now's the time to load up on layers. From lightweight long-sleeve t-shirts to heavy-duty Sherpa line coats and everything in between, Harrison's has what you need to work safe and work warm all winter long. Come see us on Norman Station Boulevard in Mooresville.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
It ain't easy being number one, but we make it look good.
WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The rise of weight loss drugs is proving to be a good thing for Dannon, the company behind Oikos and other popular yogurts. Food Drive reports the company's protein-packed and low-sugar offerings have benefited the most from the trend toward GLP-1 drugs. OpenAI is rolling out an artificial intelligence tool that can help book flights, plan grocery orders, even complete purchases for users. OpenAI says the service, called Operator, can carry out a wide range of tasks by using the internet much in the way a human would, including navigating to a website, typing, and then clicking the buttons. Last year, retailers closed more stores than they opened in the U.S., and the same will likely happen this year. That's the forecast from CoreSite Research, which expects 15,000 shuttered U.S. stores this year versus fewer than 6,000 new ones. Stocks are split. The Dow is up 0.75%, the S&P up 0.25%, but the Nasdaq is down 0.1%. I'm Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
No radio? No worries.
Just ask Alexa to play WSIC.
Dollars and Cents continues now. Here's your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Second half of today's show, football reference. It's football season, folks. It still is. Couple of weeks. And then somebody brought to my attention that baseball spring training is also a couple of weeks out. Fair point. I mean, we barely cool down the television sets from Super Bowl, and it is pitchers and catchers ready for spring training in baseball. We'll be talking about that next. And then, of course, we'll go into our absolutely compulsory countdown of how many days it is until training camp for football as well. So we'll be doing that, especially as the Super Bowl winds up. But I appreciate you hanging with us here. Second half of today's show is we're giving attention to all things economic and financial. We were talking about some. We do that. It's a little bit anecdotal. I get it. You know, I tie it into publicly traded companies. Certainly talking about financial impacts of things when we're talking about food here on Dollars and Cents. A little bit anecdotal. I Gotta keep. I mean, if all I do is talk about the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, cutting interest rates, where inflation is, I mean, maybe there'd be about 4 of you who would be listening to. The rest of you are like, what is this guy doing every single week? But sometimes if we're talking about maybe pizza flavored cinnamon toast crunch, that might catch your ear as well. Anyhow, thanks so much for hanging with us here. I got to get one more. I shared this with producer Reese during the break here. This one, again, my news feed just it must have been tilted in a little bit of an unusual direction this past week because there was one more that came across my screen here, also food related, or I should say drink related, that I saw from Coors Light. Coors Light owned and manufactured by Molson Coors, one of the great ticker symbols. I mean, especially if you're in the beer business. I mean, you want to guess it with me? What if you don't know what Molson Coors ticker symbol is? Terry Alpha Paul, TAP, tap. I mean, if you're going to be in the beer business, that's the ticker symbol you want. They got it. They're at Molson Coors. Not a recommendation, buy, sell, or hold the stock. They have a can face roller. Now, those probably aren't 3 words that you expected to hear coming after each other here on today's version of Dollars and Cents. But a can face roller. You don't have to believe me. Go ahead and look it up. I mean, it's out there. It's on the Googles. I promise you that if there is a roller, it looks a little bit like something like a lint roller kind of thing. If you know what a lint roller is, that you take lint off clothes. But instead of having that sticky tape in the middle there, you put a can of beer. God is my witness. Take a look at it online. You put a can of beer in there, and the intention is that you roll the cold can of beer on your face. Now, there's going to be an esthetician out there who's going to be able to explain to me. I know it. Call us at 844-STUDIO-4. Let me know what it is. I'm sure there's a reason why. But apparently you're supposed to roll it on your face, and it has a cooling, calming effect. I guess I can see the cooling if it's a cold can of beer. But wouldn't it get warm after you roll it on your face for a while? Maybe you're supposed to put it back in the fridge before you consume it. Maybe you're not supposed to consume it at all after you roll it on your face. Anyhow, it's out there, and it's supposed to help with the post-Super Bowl blahs, according to all things that are Google related when it comes to the can face roller from Molson Coors. That was a unique one, folks. That I can't say that was expected on my news line there, and I don't know if that's casts a flattering light on Molson Coors or Coors Light or not. I guess they're looking at multiple uses and reasons why to have more cans of Coors Light in your household. I'm not sure. Kind of interesting. All right, gonna pivot. Got to get to some stuff here that a little bit more serious in nature. And talk about what's happening out there in the marketplace. I'm looking at emerging debt. When I say emerging debt, I'm looking at I'm talking about emerging market debt. When I say that, I should say that with greater completeness. Emerging market debt, generally speaking, are bonds which are issued by, let's call them, second-tier and third-tier economic strength countries. I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. So you got countries like Germany, France, the U.S., which we would put at the first tier. And then there would be second tier. I would put countries like Italy. I would put like Belgium. I would put most of the countries in the Middle East would be in that category as well. So let's call it mostly Eastern, some Western and Eastern European and Middle East. And then with pure emerging market debt, then we're talking about countries ex-Brazil in South America, et cetera, and definitely in Asia as well. So when I'm looking at that, I'm looking specifically at the rally, the significant appreciation that we've seen pricing-wise in some bonds in emerging markets. In that emerging market debt, let's also define this. Emerging market debt or emerging market bonds, by definition, are going to carry a higher risk profile associated with them because you are buying debt or buying bonds of second and third level financial strength countries. It's not saying these countries are bad. It's just saying that financially, they just tend to be in a little bit more of a precarious situation than, say, a first-tier country. And so when we see such a huge rally in pricing of these bonds in a very short amount of time, a lot of eyebrows get raised. At least eyebrows like mine get raised because it's unusual that would happen, especially in a very tight time frame, but that's what we're seeing. So when we've seen bonds, especially, I'm looking at 2 countries specifically, where the price is just, I mean, it's always been very volatile, but definitely has appreciated notably quickly here. Venezuela and Lebanon, which, by the way, are pretty much in structural default, both countries from a financial standpoint, and have been for a while. This is not something that happened in the last week or so. But when I see the bonds appreciate so quickly, I think in part it could be two things. One, it's because they were so cheap. And so that there could have been just some value buying on that end of things. Could have been some more nefarious kinds of things, some more pump and dump kind of scenarios where, they were hyped by various kinds of so-called advice services that are out there, and that can happen as well. Not a good thing. But my real reason for bringing that up, to make you aware of it, because it definitely is an asset class that is used and can be used in the investment universe when we're talking about emerging market debt. I'm going to start out with just a very general rubric of be careful. And always know the risk profile of the things into which you're investing. And I'm not saying these are going to crash out. I'm not saying that they're destined to fail or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just talking about from a historical standpoint, when we're looking at this particular asset class, it tends to be very, very volatile. So when there's been a lot of positive appreciation, I want folks to be aware that there are two sides to a mountain, and sometimes it can happen on the other side as well. So you want to be making sure, again, that if you're adding that or if you're investing into it, if you're looking at it as a possibility to invest in, make sure you're doing your due diligence. Make sure you understand what you own. Simply, and I know you hear me say this a lot, going to say it again. It's not because I'm thinking any less of you. I just want you to make sure that you hear it, kind of thing. Just buying something because your buddy's buying something, somebody on television is buying something, or because somebody on some news program is talking about it. Folks, that's not a strategy. That's just guessing. It just is. And so don't do that. Just be careful with what you own, understand what you own, and then most importantly, perhaps after you understand what you own, understand why you want to own it. All right, let's keep going. Looking at the markets here, and looking at the kinds of things that we're seeing in the trading universe, I got to bring up Bitcoin. I really do. And I'm talking about Bitcoin specifically among the cryptocurrencies because Bitcoin now is a part of several securitized assets, specifically ETFs, exchange traded funds. So I'm talking about Bitcoin specifically, but you can look at any of the assets, or the cryptocurrency assets that are out there as well, including one that was introduced just a couple of days before the inauguration. Now, I can't define it as a cryptocurrency. I hesitate even to use this word, but it has been used, a meme coin that is out there in the name of our current president. Folks, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert at all, and I'm certainly not giving any recommendations to buy, sell, or hold anything with regards to cryptocurrency or Bitcoin for that matter, even though it is a securitized asset. But again, my word to you is, especially with regards to what we saw happen over the weekend, with regards to the new coin, the new trading entity in the name of our president. I mean, it dropped precipitously. After there was a huge surge in demand, it dropped precipitously, almost by the minute, meaning in terms of valuation. Folks, understand what you own. And it's not a discouragement to own whatever you want. Everybody's situation is unique. It's important that everybody makes their own decisions. I'm just encouraging you, do your due diligence. Just buying something because your buddies bought it, somebody on television says to buy it, or anything, folks, there's nothing wrong with high risk. There's nothing wrong with speculation, so long as you classify it in that way. But these trades that are made based upon about what we think may happen because a certain person is in the administration, or because of certain assumptions that are made about folks who sit in the cabinet. Folks, I can show you about 110 years of history. That doesn't hold water. It just doesn't. Markets do not start and stop on January 20th every 4 years. They don't. Trust me. You don't have to believe me. Take a look at it yourself. They really don't do that. Yeah, and economies do not stop and start every January 20th every 4 years as well. But we ascribe the kinds of things that have to do with markets to certain administrations or certain Congresses. Some of these effects that we may be seeing today, they may be from an administration 2 or 3 ago. Literally, that may be the case. That's a very understandable way that things can move. So again, make sure you understand what you own first, and then after you understand what you own, define why you own it genuinely. All right, we're going to take a little break here as we get set up here for the fourth quarter here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Back in a moment.
Keep it right here. Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi will return shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Starting to emerge out of our deep freeze around Lake Norman over the next couple of days. Sunshine back mixed with some clouds today as high temperatures climb only into the upper 30s, but we are above freezing. Temperatures go back down into the low 20s overnight. Maybe some upper teens around the outlying spots and farms, but for your Friday, we'll climb back into the low 40s. Mid-40s starting off the weekend, or back close to 50 by the end of the weekend. Near 60 maybe by next week. That's your forecast. From the WSIC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar. Join us at Bid 110 in Cornelius on Thursday, January 23rd at 6:30 p.m. for a night of connection, conversation, and carefree vibes. It is Ladies' Night at Bid 110. Dry January? Wet January? You can sip soda or a nice glass of wine. Your choice, as the group will be happy to see you. Ladies' Night at Bid 110 in Cornelius, Thursday, January 23rd. Saturday afternoon, Soul to Soul Connection, Willow Equine, and Letters from Home are hosting a poker tournament. Registration begins at 1 p.m. at Barn Life on London Road in Mooresville. Proceeds benefit Soul to Soul Connection. Registration is at 1 p.m. The game begins at 1:30 and ends at 3:30. Cash prizes are distributed immediately to the winners. Come on out to Barn Life in Mooresville Saturday at 1 p.m. for the Soul to Soul poker tournament. Local star Rocky Lynn performs Saturday night at Joe V. Knox Auditorium in Mooresville. The show begins at 7:30 p.m. inside the Charles Mack Citizen Center. There will be a pre-show party at 158 on Main in downtown Mooresville. Visit experiencecmcc.com for tickets, and we will see you Saturday night at the Joe V. Knox Auditorium in Mooresville for the Rocky Lynn concert. This is the final week to lace up your skates at Brookdale on Ice, happening now through Sunday. Reservations to ensure skating time slots are accepted. Walk-ups are also welcome. Go to brookdalevillage.com for details, information, and tickets to Brookdale on Ice. At Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Ford Performance Racing School offers on-track driving instruction for every performance driving enthusiast, regardless of skill level or goal. All Ford Performance Racing School classes are conducted by trained, experienced, and professional instructors. Here's your chance to get your Roval on. Book now at 435-27-SPEED or visit charlottemotorspeedway.com for details and more information. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Making your money make sense. Dollars and Cents with CFP Joshua Dobi on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here. Fourth quarter of today's show, 11 minutes, 57 seconds until we get to that 5 o'clock bell if you're a 9 to 5er, and I appreciate you much that you're hanging with us here as we're giving attention to all things financial, economic here on Dollars and Cents. And just we were going to break there, I felt like I was talking a little bit too negative, so I guess I have to talk on the positive side of things so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to slant the conversation too much. I was talking about cryptocurrencies and specifically Bitcoin and also some other ones that are out there I got to mention about Bitcoin up over $100,000 for a single Bitcoin right now. Who would have known? Well, I shouldn't say that. There are many who would have known. Or certainly had expectation and perhaps hope that it would, but there is so much attention now given to it, and frankly by this incoming administration, a tremendous amount of attention being given to it, and a tremendous amount of focus on broadening the industry and increasing the kinds of opportunities that folks may have to invest and to be a part of it. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think it's very interesting anyhow in looking at it. But also, as always, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Bitcoin or anything else when it comes to that. But I felt like I was talking negative right before the break there, so I had to give some positive as well, just with regards to the amazing amount of appreciation that it's had here over a relatively short period of time. Let's keep going. I think this was mentioned on Good Morning Elkan as well. I may have missed it, but I think it was mentioned also as part of the show here over the last day or two. But this is big. This is big in the real estate market. And I'm going to bleed this into the overall markets here as we're wrapping up today's show. But in looking at the announcement by the incoming administration that they are going to be very intentional about how the best verb to use for this? They are going to not be using as much of the federal office building square footage as they have been in the past. Does that sound wordy enough? That was absolutely terrible. But I also didn't want to say they're going to be selling office buildings or they're going to be dumping office buildings on the market. Because that would be inappropriate. They may be subletting. They may be doing all kinds of things. It's unknown at this point. But certainly it has been professed that there is a tremendous amount of square footage in federal office buildings which is not being used. That's the thesis or the other underlying idea behind what we're talking about here, and because of that, the incoming administration has said that there's going to be some pretty specific intent in cutting office space, and also in addition to that, and this was part of the collection of EOs or executive orders that President Trump signed here over the last couple of days, that there was going to be a back to the office mandate for many federal office workers who are working at home. And so it's kind of interesting. So they talk about reducing the footprint on the office space, but they're saying to a whole bunch of folks, you got to go back in the office. My guess is that there is an assumption that there will be some number of federal office workers who choose not to go back into the office and possibly could forfeit their job. So I think that there is some assumption that there's going to be an opportunity either to sublet, meaning they're not going to give up the ownership of the building. Maybe they're going to sublet it to private entities in some way, or they may just be outright selling it. But we're talking upwards. I mean, at least the numbers that I've heard battered around here, we're talking upwards of 200 million square feet that could become available either in a sublet kind of way or perhaps in an outright sale kind of way, which would be very notable. Because it's not true that all of these office buildings are in hyper urban areas like Washington D.C. or New York City, but also in some rural areas as well. So what would that mean for office space in terms of pricing? It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Hopefully, it's done if there is an attempt to move some through the market. Hopefully, it's done intelligently so that doesn't create an unnatural and immediate glut on the market, which would depress pricing. You've heard me talk about office space, especially Class A office space, a number of times here over the last couple of months on Dollars and Cents, about how we hit some all-time highs in terms of vacancy already, especially in our high-rise tires and our super talls in so many of our urban areas, upwards of 20% of vacancy already. So already some stressors that are happening in those spaces from a vacancy standpoint and from a valuation standpoint. So if we get this large dump and if it's not done in ways that the market is able to absorb easily, what does that mean for office prices going forward? I know that has a tint of negativity associated with it. I do have some concern. About the more traditional Class A office space, not across the board. Doesn't mean every space is going to be, that you're going to see lease rates drop or valuations drop, that every single one is going to drop. No, because there are plenty of spaces, including right here in Charlotte. Golly, it seems like there's a free crane out there. Somebody's going to go pick it up and build one right now. It's amazing how much is being built. So both ends of the coin, or both sides of the coin, if you will, relative to this idea, but still with this announcement coming from the incoming administration, definitely worth consideration and for keeping it on your radar screen. So we certainly will with regards to the commercial real estate space, what that may mean from a pricing standpoint, and hopefully will not mean that things take it too hard on the nose. All right, markets overall. I mean, as I mentioned at the front end of today's show, we are a little bit more than a week away from the end of the month. Golly, we're there already, 1/12 of the way through. I mean, like I said, I think we just barely got the Christmas tree out the door here in the last couple of days or so, and here we are at the end of the month, and the market has started. I would say overall, when you're looking at it as measured by our most popular indices, but not bad in terms of how we've started the year. Certainly a more broad-based kind of let's call it performance experience. And when I say broad-based, I mean, it hasn't been in these first couple of weeks, which is just the first couple of weeks. It's nothing more than that. It hasn't been the kind of space where we've seen just the narrow tech sector, large cap kind of performances that we've seen here over the last almost 2 years. that that's been the case, that has really driven the markets. We started to spread it out a little bit. We touched here in the first couple of weeks, we're touching on oil and energy. Now that those prices have been depressed, and we talked about how that was really one of the undervalued ends of the market as measured by normal kinds of macro or micro indicators like price earnings ratio, price to sales ratios, et cetera. And then also with regards to the financial market. And when I say the financials, excuse me, I'm looking at money center banks, regional banks, trading entities like Charles Schwab, et cetera. And so when we're looking at those kinds of things and how they performed the first couple of weeks of this year, kind of interesting, because it hasn't been just, run for the moon across the board. It's not that every sector has done well. Certainly not every stock has done well. Plenty have not done well. But when you're looking at the broad-based market and how it's performed since the start of the year, I would say relatively steady to this point, which is kind of interesting to me. It's kind of interesting because we've had two exceptionally strong years as measured by our most popular stock indices. We've had two exceptionally strong years back to back. And folks, I don't think I need to tell you that having three exceptionally strong years back to back, very, very rare. You got to go back about 30 years in order to see that happen. And when it happened 30 years ago, it was the first time that it had happened for several decades before that. So it's not the kind of thing that happens very, very frequently. Now, does that mean that the market's going to be dramatically negative this year? Not necessarily. I'm not saying that at all. Might be, but it might also be positive this year. I'm just saying to have a linear expectation of thinking, well, we've had two great years, so this year's going to be great as well. Nope, not the way it works. Nothing works that way. Not when it comes to the investment universe, anyhow. That things automatically move that way because we just happen to have done that here over the last couple of years. That's proximity bias. That means just because it happened here recently, you think it's going to happen again. Not the way it works. So I would just urge a word of caution, as I always do. I know, I say that all the time here. That's all right. I'm going to keep saying it because it's important. It's especially important when there is groupthink within the investment universe. We're seeing that in pockets of the universe, of the investment universe right now. We're seeing where there is groupthink that because things have done well recently, that things are going to continue to do well. And it does not work that way, folks. It doesn't. And I know that. I know I sound a little bit like, I'm ringing the gong in the night here, but it's something to keep in mind. Let me say it differently. Let me come at it from the other side of the equation. The best time to be ready is before it happens. I know, it sounds pretty elementary when I say that out loud, except folks always want to make changes after bad stuff occurs. Meaning after it took too much risk, took it on the head from a valuation standpoint. Excuse me. And then folks want to talk about, well, let's make some changes now, or boy, let's get out because it's gone down. Okay, we can do that. All we're pretty much going to do is lock in the losses at that point. The time to make tweaks, adjustments, and changes is before that occurs. I know, newsflash, right? No, it really is. But folks are sometimes reticent to do that because, thinking linearly, they think it's going to continue to go up, and they may be correct. So they may miss out on some upside. You may miss out on some additional growth. That's always a risk that's associated with that. So what's more important to you? Missing out on some additional upside or protecting the downside? I'll tell you psychologically, and I spend a lot of time on this, psychologically, folks are much more concerned about mitigating downside risk than they are about capturing the golden ring on the upside. You don't have to believe me. It's out there. You can Google it. I mean, I promise you, when you look at it, folks psychologically, after it happens, this is after it occurs, are much more concerned about mitigating downside than they are about capturing the golden ring on the upside. It's very interesting. I mean, we spend a lot of time looking at the psychological and sociological aspects of things, meaning the thoughts of the individual and the thoughts of the group and how they go together, because that tends to be an indication about how we can figure out where the market's going to go. That's how it moves. And when you understand why folks do what they do. Anyhow, thanks so much for hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents. We're rapidly approaching the end of our time together here. Quick recap on where things are. A lot going on, especially with the inaugurations, where folks are talking about the markets Folks, take it in a healthy context. It's rarely going to be as good as you think it's going to be. It's rarely going to be as bad as you think it's going to be. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. Make sure that you're managing appropriately on both sides of things. Always interesting things happening in the market. Good start. Are we going to keep going in that direction from here? Only time will tell, but we'll give you the best insight that we can. Not only today, but on future shows here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Come back with us next week here on Thursdays at 4 on WSIC.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville, W260